Do you remember the beginning? Those first few months when everything was perfect. The constant texts, the butterflies in your stomach when they walked into a room. The way every moment together felt like magic. How the smallest touch sent electricity through your body. How you could talk for hours and never get bored. How every little thing they did seemed adorable, fascinating, perfect. And then, something changed. Not overnight. Not in some dramatic moment of realization. Just gradually, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first. The excitement started to fade. The butterflies became less frequent. The constant need to be together transformed into comfortable routines. The long conversations became shorter. The electric touches became familiar. The adorable quirks, well, some of them started to annoy you. If you're feeling this shift right now, you might be wondering, is something wrong with my relationship? Have I fallen out of love? Did I make a mistake? I'm here to tell you something that might bring you both relief and anxiety. What you're experiencing is completely normal. This transition from the intoxicating honeymoon phase to the deeper, more complex reality of long-term love is one of the most challenging and most important phases of any lasting relationship. This transition isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of something deeper, something more authentic, something that has the potential to bring you more fulfillment than those early days ever could. But only if you understand what's happening and learn how to navigate it. Today, we're going to explore this crucial transition. We'll look at why the honeymoon phase inevitably ends, what happens to your brain and body when it does, and most importantly, how to build something even more beautiful in its place. Because what comes after the honeymoon phase isn't the death of romance. It's the birth of true intimacy. Let's begin by understanding exactly what the honeymoon phase is and why it exists in the first place. The honeymoon phase isn't just a cultural concept. It's deeply rooted in our biology. When you first fall in love, your brain is literally flooded with chemicals. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward, surges through your system every time you see, touch, or even think about your partner. This creates a natural high, similar to what happens when someone uses cocaine. At the same time, your brain releases norepinephrine and phenylethylamine, which create excitement and even mild obsession. Your serotonin levels drop, which is the same thing that happens in people with obsessive-compulsive disorder. This explains why you can't stop thinking about your new partner, why you idealize them, and why you're willing to stay up all night just to be together. Your body is also producing oxytocin, the bonding hormone, whenever you touch. And perhaps most significantly, the parts of your brain responsible for critical thinking and judgment become less active. That's why we often don't notice red flags during this period. Our brains are literally less capable of critical assessment when we're in the throes of new love. All of these neurochemical processes serve an evolutionary purpose. They bind you to your partner long enough to form an attachment. From a purely biological perspective, these powerful feelings exist to ensure reproduction and the formation of partnerships that will support child rearing. But here's the catch. This neurochemical cocktail is unsustainable. Your brain simply cannot maintain these elevated levels of dopamine, oxytocin, and other chemicals indefinitely. From a biological standpoint, remaining in a constant state of infatuation would be exhausting and ultimately detrimental to your survival. You would never get anything done if you remained permanently obsessed with another person. So typically, after anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, these chemical levels begin to normalize. The constant euphoria subsides. The obsessive thinking calms down. Your brain's critical faculties come back online. And suddenly, You're seeing your partner more clearly, complete with all their imperfections, annoying habits, and differences from you. This transition is entirely natural. It doesn't mean you've fallen out of love. It means your relationship is evolving from infatuation to a deeper, more sustainable form of connection. But understanding this process doesn't necessarily make it easier to navigate. In the next part, we'll explore what it actually feels like to go through this transition and why it creates so much anxiety and uncertainty for so many couples. The end of the honeymoon phase often brings with it a profound sense of loss. The intensity fades, the certainty wavers, the effortlessness gives way to moments of frustration, misunderstanding, and doubt. For many people, this shift triggers deep anxiety. You might find yourself wondering, if I'm not feeling that constant excitement anymore, does it mean I don't love them enough? If we're arguing more often now, is our relationship in trouble? If I'm noticing their flaws more clearly, did I make the wrong choice? These doubts are completely normal, but they can be deeply unsettling. We've been conditioned by movies, songs, and fairy tales to believe that true love means constant passion and unwavering certainty. The reality, that sustainable love includes periods of disconnection, frustration, and even boredom, rarely makes it into our cultural narratives. What makes this transition even more challenging is that it often coincides with other significant life changes. Maybe you've recently moved in together, combining your living spaces and financial responsibilities. Perhaps you're navigating career changes, family dynamics, or health challenges together for the first time. Many couples face this transition when planning a wedding, having a child, or making other major life decisions. All of these external pressures can amplify the internal doubts that naturally arise as the honeymoon phase ends. The combination can lead to relationship crises, where one or both partners start to question everything. This is the point where many relationships end, not because anything is fundamentally wrong, but because the couple lacks the understanding and tools to navigate this natural transition. They mistake the end of infatuation for the end of love. But this is precisely when the opportunity for a much deeper connection begins. When the fog of infatuation lifts, you can truly see each other, not as idealized fantasies, but as complex, imperfect human beings. And choosing to love the real person in front of you, rather than the perfect image you initially fell for, is the foundation of lasting intimacy. This next phase requires something the honeymoon phase doesn't: intentional effort. While the early days of a relationship seem to flow effortlessly, sustained love requires conscious choice, consistent attention, and sometimes difficult work. It's no longer just about being swept away by passion, it's about actively building something together. And that's where many couples struggle. They don't realize that this shift from automatic to intentional is normal and necessary. They interpret the need for effort as a sign that something is wrong, rather than understanding it as a natural evolution. So how do we navigate this transition? How do we move from the automatic passion of the honeymoon phase to the deeper connection that lies beyond? That's what we'll explore in the next part. If this content is resonating with you, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. I'm creating videos that help you navigate life's most challenging transitions, and I'd love to have you join this community. One of the most powerful steps you can take during this transition is to consciously manage your expectations. The belief that real love should always feel effortless and exciting is perhaps the most damaging myth in our cultural understanding of relationships. The truth is that all long-term relationships go through cycles. There will be periods of intense connection, passion, and joy. And there will be periods of distance, frustration, and questioning. Neither state is the true state of your relationship. They are both natural parts of the cycle. Understanding this cyclical nature can transform how you experience the more challenging phases. Instead of interpreting a period of disconnect as a sign that your relationship is failing, you can recognize it as a natural low point in the cycle, one that will eventually rise again if you continue to nurture your connection. This perspective shift doesn't just make the difficult periods more bearable, it makes them valuable. Because it's often during these challenging times that the real growth happens, both individually and as a couple. When things feel easy and natural, there's little incentive to develop new skills or deepen your understanding of each other. But when you hit friction, when communication breaks down, when needs conflict, when past wounds get triggered, you have the opportunity to build something that wasn't there before. Learning to communicate more clearly, to resolve conflicts constructively, to support each other through difficult emotions. These skills don't develop automatically during the honeymoon phase. They develop through the challenges that come after. And here's something crucial to understand. Developing these skills isn't just about preserving your relationship. It's about becoming a more whole, mature, and capable human being. The growth you experience through working on relationship challenges benefits every area of your life. This is why the end of the honeymoon phase, while uncomfortable, is actually an invitation to grow beyond the limitations of infatuation into the deeper capacities of mature love. But what does this growth actually look like in practice? Let's explore some of the key developmental tasks that couples face during this transition. First, there's the shift from fusion to differentiation. During the honeymoon phase, couples often experience a blissful sense of merger, of being perfectly aligned, perfectly in sync, two halves of a whole. This feeling is intoxicating, but it's also unsustainable and ultimately limiting. True intimacy isn't about erasing the boundaries between you and your partner. It's about maintaining your individual identity while creating a deep connection. It's about being two whole people choosing to share a life, rather than two half people needing each other to feel complete. This differentiation process can be painful. When you start to reassert your individual needs, interests, and perspectives after a period of blissful merger, it can feel like something is being lost. But what's actually happening is that you're creating the foundation for a more sustainable and fulfilling connection, one that doesn't require either person to shrink or contort themselves to maintain. Another crucial developmental task is learning to navigate conflict constructively. During the honeymoon phase, differences often get minimized or overlooked entirely. You're so focused on what you have in common, so eager to please each other, that significant differences may not even register. But as the honeymoon phase ends, these differences inevitably emerge. You have different preferences, different ways of communicating, different values, different triggers. And learning to navigate these differences without destroying your connection is one of the most important skills you'll develop. This doesn't mean you'll reach a point where you never argue. Even the healthiest couples have conflicts. The difference is in how they handle those conflicts, whether they lead to greater understanding and connection or to resentment and distance. In the next part, we'll look at some specific strategies for navigating these developmental tasks and building a deeper connection as you move beyond the honeymoon phase. Now let's talk about practical strategies for navigating this transition and building a deeper connection. The first strategy is to consciously cultivate appreciation. During the honeymoon phase, you naturally focus on everything you love about your partner. Your brain is wired to notice the positives and minimize the negatives. But as this phase ends, the opposite often happens. You become more attuned to irritations and disappointments. Counteracting this negativity bias requires intentional effort. Make it a daily practice to identify at least 3 things you appreciate about your partner. These can be small gestures, character traits, or contributions they make to your life. Share these appreciations regularly. This isn't about ignoring real issues. It's about maintaining a balanced perspective. The second strategy is to prioritize emotional safety. As the honeymoon phase ends and you begin to see each other more clearly, vulnerabilities naturally emerge. You start to notice each other's sensitive spots, insecurities, and past wounds. How you respond to these vulnerabilities will largely determine whether your relationship deepens or deteriorates. Creating emotional safety means responding to your partner's vulnerabilities with empathy rather than judgment, with curiosity rather than criticism. It means recognizing when they're feeling threatened or hurt, even when their reaction seems disproportionate to the situation. This doesn't mean you're responsible for managing your partner's emotions or walking on eggshells around them. It means developing the capacity to stay present and compassionate when they're struggling, rather than becoming defensive or dismissive. The third strategy is to develop rituals of connection. During the honeymoon phase, connection happens almost automatically. But as the natural intensity fades, maintaining your bond requires more intentional effort. Create daily rituals that keep you connected. A morning check-in over coffee, a genuine hug when you reunite at the end of the day, a technology-free dinner where you can really talk. Schedule regular date nights where you can focus just on each other, away from the demands of daily life. These rituals create a framework for connection, ensuring that you don't drift apart amid the busyness of life. They're especially important during stressful periods when your natural tendency might be to disconnect. The fourth strategy is to maintain curiosity. One of the greatest threats to long-term relationships is the belief that you already know everything there is to know about your partner. This assumption leads to taking them for granted, making assumptions about their thoughts and feelings, and ultimately, to a sense of stagnation. The reality is that both you and your partner are constantly evolving. The person you're with today is not exactly the same person you met, and they'll be different again in 5 years. Maintaining curiosity means regularly checking in with questions like, what are you excited about right now? What's challenging you? What do you need that you're not getting? This ongoing curiosity prevents the staleness that many people fear in long-term relationships. It keeps you growing together rather than growing apart. But even with these strategies, the transition beyond the honeymoon phase isn't always smooth. Let's talk about some common challenges couples face during this time and how to address them. One of the most common challenges during this transition is the tension between autonomy and togetherness. As you move beyond the fusion of the honeymoon phase, questions naturally arise about how much space each person needs, how decisions will be made, and how you'll balance individual pursuits with relationship priorities. There's no one-size-fits-all answer here. Some couples thrive with more independence, while others prefer more togetherness. The key is honest communication about your needs and preferences, without judgment or assumption that one approach is inherently better than another. It's also important to recognize that these needs may shift over time. You might need more autonomy during certain life phases or projects, and more togetherness during others. A healthy relationship allows for this flexibility rather than rigidly adhering to one pattern. Another common challenge is the emergence of deeper compatibility issues. During the honeymoon phase, differences in values, goals, and lifestyles often get minimized. But as reality sets in, you may discover more significant areas of misalignment. Maybe you have different approaches to money, different views on having children, different religious beliefs, or different ideas about where and how to live. These differences don't necessarily mean your relationship is doomed, but they do require thoughtful navigation. Addressing these compatibility issues involves honest exploration of what's negotiable and what isn't for each of you. It involves creative problem solving to find approaches that honor both people's core needs. And sometimes it involves difficult decisions about whether certain differences can be bridged. A third challenge is the reactivation of attachment wounds. We all bring our relationship histories into our current partnerships, not just our romantic history, but the patterns we learned in our families of origin. As the honeymoon phase ends and real-life stressors emerge, these old wounds often get triggered. The person who was abandoned as a child may become terrified when their partner needs space. The person who grew up with criticism may become defensive at the slightest feedback. Recognizing and healing these attachment patterns is some of the most important work you can do as you move beyond the honeymoon phase. This might involve individual therapy, couples counseling, or simply developing greater awareness of your triggers and learning to communicate about them with your partner. These challenges aren't signs that your relationship is failing. They're opportunities to develop a deeper understanding of yourself and your partner, and to build a more resilient connection. In our final segment, let's talk about what becomes possible when you successfully navigate this transition. What lies on the other side of the honeymoon phase? Beyond the honeymoon phase lies the possibility of mature love, a connection that's deeper, richer, and ultimately more satisfying than the initial infatuation. While the honeymoon phase is characterized by idealization, mature love is characterized by true acceptance. You see each other clearly, with all your flaws, wounds, and limitations, and you choose each other anyway. This kind of acceptance is profoundly healing. During the honeymoon phase, you often love the image of your partner, the person you believe them to be or want them to be. In mature love, you love the actual human being in front of you, in all their complex reality. This love is harder to achieve, but much more durable. Mature love also includes a depth of trust that can only be built over time. It's the trust that comes from weathering difficulties together, from seeing how your partner shows up when things aren't easy, from experiencing again and again that they're there for you. This kind of earned trust creates a security that the honeymoon phase, for all its intensity, cannot provide. It's the confidence that your partner knows the real you and chooses you anyway. It's the safety of being fully yourself without the exhausting performance that early relationships often require. Mature love also offers the joy of building something meaningful together. Whether it's creating a home, raising children, supporting each other's growth, or simply sharing the ordinary moments of daily life, there's a profound satisfaction in the accumulated history and shared purpose of a long-term partnership. And contrary to popular belief, mature love doesn't mean the end of passion. While the automatic chemistry of the honeymoon phase does fade, couples who maintain their connection often experience a different kind of desire, one based on deep knowing, emotional intimacy, and intentional presence. This desire may not have the frantic urgency of new love, but it has a depth and richness that can actually lead to greater sexual satisfaction when you truly know and accept your partner. When you've built trust and communication over time, you create the conditions for a more profound physical connection. The key is recognizing that passion in long-term relationships requires more intention. It doesn't just happen automatically. It's cultivated through continued curiosity, through maintaining some sense of separateness alongside your togetherness, through making space for desire amid the practicalities of shared life. So if you're in that uncomfortable transition right now, if the honeymoon glow has faded and you're facing the reality of what it means to build a life with another imperfect human being, take heart. What feels like an ending may actually be a beginning. You're not losing love. You're being invited into a deeper experience of it. One that requires more from you, yes, but also offers more in return. One that contributes not just to your happiness, but to your growth as a human being. The choice is yours. You can mourn the passing of the honeymoon phase and keep searching for that initial high with someone new. Or you can accept the invitation that this transition offers. The invitation to build something more mature, more authentic, and ultimately more fulfilling. I believe in your capacity to make this transition, to do the work that mature love requires, and to discover the joy that waits on the other side. Thank you for listening. If you found value in this video, please share it with someone who might benefit, and I'll see you in the next one. For those who would like to dive deeper into this topic, I've created a guide called Beyond the Honeymoon, a practical guide to building lasting intimacy. You'll find the link in the description below. Until next time, remember that love isn't just something you feel. It's something you build, one day at a time.